Good afternoon, everyone. We're just going to get started in a moment. We'll let everyone jump into the Zoom. We'll get started momentarily. Excited to welcome you here today for an exciting event around being a basketball parent hosted by the Warriors Youth Academy and Positive Coaching Alliance. So welcome. My name is Jeremy Goldberg. I'll be your host for this evening. I'm the president of a company called LeagueApps that is a technology partner with Golden State Warriors and specifically the Youth Academy. But for the purposes of tonight's conversation, I'm the point guard. I'm the Steph Curry today. I'll get my points in, but I'll also make sure that we're bringing the incredible panelists that we have today to bring a lively conversation about what it means to be a youth basketball parent and some of the amazing things that you can do right now at this moment in time. One of the things I think about is a lot of us have kids at any moment. My 4- and 2-year-old may run in. I know Coach Miles is facing a similar dilemma. And I feel like our kids are all going through online education. They're on Zoom. And so as parents, we get to go through this now. It feels like we're going back to school a little bit. But we're going to make this fun and interactive. And one of the things I've always been inspired about when I think about the Golden State Warriors is the phrase strength in numbers, right? And there's the power of community, the power of bringing people together. And what I'm excited about is the strength in numbers of the conversation we're having, not just the different perspectives we'll bring together for tonight's conversation, but the power of bringing together the broader community of people that are connected to the Golden State Warriors, especially as parents of participants that have been part of their camps and incredible programming. And when that community comes together and asks themselves how they can be even a better basketball parent and what they can use in this moment to deliver great basketball experiences to kids, even if it's at home, it's hopefully a gift that will allow them to enjoy the game of basketball even more. I think a lot at this moment about the Muhammad Ali quote, "Don't count the days, make the day count." Right. And I think by making the days count, I think by being here, by bettering ourselves, I think that's a big part of the process. There's also the great John Wooden quote, which is it's what you learn after you know it all that counts. And I know for a lot of basketball parents, there's a lot that we think we know, but I think it's what you know after that point that I think there's a lot of benefit for. So with that, I'm excited to get tonight started. I'm gonna bring it over to the man who made tonight happen, Jeff Addiego from the Warriors Youth Academy. And Jeff, you've been part of the Warriors for a long period of time. And so maybe give us a little context about what the Warriors Youth Academy has done and what it's doing at this moment. And then we'll talk a little bit about tonight.
Well, first off, thank you, Jeremy, for helping us out today. And thank you to LeagueApps for organizing this. We think it's a great platform for, both the Warriors and Positive Coaching Alliance to share some of our views on how to best support our kids during these, unprecedented times. For us, we're the backbone of what we do is getting on the court with kids. We do numerous camps throughout each and every year, all throughout our market in the Bay Area. And we kind of had that stripped away from us with things that are going on with the pandemic right now. And so we really needed to pivot and shift gears and dive into an area that or a path we really hadn't been down before. And that's kind of being able to teach the game and influence young players and families through technology. And so, we started a variety of different things. Our first thing that we kind of dipped our toe in the water with was our Instagram live workouts, which we do twice a week. Those are free. You follow us on Instagram at GSW Academy, and our staff is able to, put young players through 30-minute workouts twice a week, really, build up a great sweat and get a great workout in. And hopefully right now it's breaking up the monotony in their day. If they have, online schooling that they're doing right now, it gives them a quick 30-minute break middle of the day where they can get consumed with the game of basketball, something we all love and something we all love to take our minds away from, the stresses and problems we have in our daily life. And it's a great escape. With that said, we also, started having some conversations with Positive Coaching Alliance and, some things we could do virtually to, impact the basketball landscape in the Bay Area and beyond. And, initially we thought, well, maybe we'll do a virtual coaches clinic. And we saw that there were a number of those that were happening, in other places. And as we got deeper into that conversation with Positive Coaching Alliance, we realized, maybe the audience that we should be directing our message to should be parents. Right now, parents not only have to deal with their everyday parenting duties, but now they're having to be teachers, and in some cases, even having to be coaches at home. So what can we do? What advice and tips can we give them to kind of help them with what they're doing at home to just to be the best, most supportive parents for their kids, their young athletes. A lot of them basketball players, some of them playing other sports. So that was kind of the notion that kind of motivated us to get this going, and I'm just happy to see it come about.
And Jeff, one of the things that's amazing about the Warriors is how well respected nationally they are for their youth programs. Of course, all the success on the court is one thing and in the community, but they're really the envy of the NBA when it comes to the incredible programming you're running. So I know you're iterating into this virtual camp model this summer, and you're legendary for your camp. So maybe give us a little bit more glimpse about what the camps would entail and what that looks like.
Yeah, we've been fortunate to, over the last 20 years, to build up the largest camp program in the NBA. And, like I said, as we kind of were stripped of the opportunity of getting on the court with the kids this summer, we really wanted to figure out, what was the best avenue for us to stay engaged with these campers, keep them healthy and active, keep them in love with the game of basketball. And so just yesterday, we announced the launch of our virtual camps. We're rolling out with 3 week-long camps during the month of June right now. It'll be a 5-day session for each one of those, 75-minute workouts each day. Included in that week-long experience will be a 30-minute semi-private workout with our coaches as well. And the cool thing about it is, we love our Instagram live workouts, but it's really a one-sided platform in that, the participants, they can chime in with some comments, but our coaches don't get to see them on screen. With our virtual camps, they'll be in a Zoom type setting. We'll be going through our partner Ring Central to do it, where it'll be one coach on the screen, 8 to 9 players on the screen with them, where, if I'm a coach on the screen, I can call each camper by name. I can see what they're doing in their workout. I can let them know if their elbow's not tucked in on that form shooting or whatever it might be. So just to be able to have those connections, to call them out by name, kind of create a little bit of accountability on the camper's behalf, maybe assign them some homework each and every day with camp, and a number of drills we want them to do outside of the camp experience, virtual camp experience, and then tie it all together with a week-long session. So the other cool thing that we're doing is we're developing a camper at home pack, where, a few days before your camp starts, you're going to get a package in the mail from the Warriors that's going to have your camp jersey that you would have gotten if you came to one of our physical sessions, and also some other things that are going to help you execute some of the workouts that we're going to be doing over the course of the week. So, I think we'll even be lucky enough to have a few guest appearances. We might see somebody like Coach Aaron Miles popping in and talking to our campers one day during one of those sessions. But that's kind of the unique that thing that we can do with our programming is, having that ability to incorporate current and former players, current and former coaches, just to kind of tie it all back into the Warriors. Because, ultimately, we want them to deepen that love and passion for the game of basketball. If they end up being stronger Golden State Warrior fans at the end of it, it's just gravy on top.
Awesome. Well, I know that you again continue to lead the way and innovate, and you're so committed on delivering great experiences for kids and families. So there's a great Forbes article that recently came out, not to make you blush, but that talked all about your great work. We'll make sure we share that in the chat tool so people can see that and take a lot of pride in all the great work that the Warriors are doing. And thanks, Jeff, for inspiring tonight. And again, really being one of the first NBA teams to think about this kind of online parent education, which we'll get into now. So thanks, Jeff. And I'm excited now to bring in the panel just to set expectations for what tonight's conversation is about, today's conversation is about. First is understanding, as a parent, what are the ways to help your kids understand the right kind of lessons from sports at this very moment in the situation you find yourself. Because one of the most amazing things about sports is there's so much value you can get beyond what happens on the court. We'll hear a lot about that from Ruben in terms of positive coaching alliance. Well, now is the chance to exercise that. I could imagine Ruben showing up at a parents coaching forum and saying, what would you want out of sports if your kids couldn't play the game? What would it be about? And now we're actually getting to live that exercise. And I think, so how do we connect into that? The second is what does it actually mean to be a great basketball parent? Not just now, but in the future. And what does that look like? And drawing on Coach Miles' experiences and Ruben's experience, we'll talk about that as well. The third is we have a YouTube star here. We'll get into that in a second, and Coach Miles. And so what are the ways you can think about drills and activities to do with your kids in quarantine? And of course, the last is, what is the power of this moment as we think about this pause? How might we use this to be even better for it as families and as basketball fans? So we'll cover all those things, and I'm excited to bring in our panelists. They need no introduction, but I'll introduce them anyway briefly. First, we've got Ruben Nieves, who's the PCA National Director of Training. And there's a lot of different perspectives Ruben's bringing to the table. One is obviously Positive Coaching Alliance is incredibly well known for their work with organizations across the country, be they professional leagues and teams all the way down to the grassroots, really making sure people get the right lessons out of their sports experiences. But the other thing about Coach Nieves, if you may not, people may not remember this, is that he also coached volleyball for 18 years, including being the head men's coach at Stanford and the head women's coach at Fresno State. And he was 2-time NCAA men's volleyball coach of the year. So we're incredibly grateful to have your incredible accomplishments and perspective. You can relate to dealing with parents and how they're thinking about their kids' experience as a coach and now from the PCA experience. So thank you for being with us. And then Coach Miles, there's a lot of different attributes I can ascribe to you. You're the assistant coach for the Warriors. You're obviously an accomplished player in your own right, a state champion out of Oregon, of course, playing in the NBA and in the G League and teams in Europe. Legendary career at Kansas, Rock Chalk, and a parent of 4 kids. And you're also a YouTube star. With the workouts that you're doing on Miles Monday on the YouTube channel, which is really amazing to see, and I know I enjoyed watching those as well. So we're excited to have both of you here today and be part of this conversation. So the first thing is, and I'll throw it to you, Coach Miles, first. I think for the audience, I think it'd be helpful to understand the perspective you're bringing, right? Not just as a coach, but as someone who played basketball and especially as a parent. So talk a little bit about, as you think about basketball right now, what's the perspective you're bringing to this conversation about being a basketball parent?
Well, first off, I'm honored to be able to be a part of this webinar. So thank you for having me on. But as you said earlier, man, I'm doing these Miles Mondays. I have 4 boys. My wife and we have 4 boys, elementary school ages 11 to down to 6. And so as a parent, it's a lot of, I'm outside, so the wind. So for me, my perspective is, I'm a parent going through these times of the quarantine, which is new to all of us. It's different. But then also, having the experience of being a former basketball player and now coaching the game, understanding how to relate to the kids on that level and just showing them different things here and there.
And Ruben, you maybe give a little bit more context about PCA. What does it do, and specifically, how do you work with parents?
Yeah, Positive Coaching Alliance since 1998, since our founding, we've been working with youth sports organizations, schools around the country to help make the sports experience as positive, productive, as healthy as it can be for everybody involved. Certainly the kids themselves, but doggone it, coaches deserve, the vast majority of people coaching sports in this country are volunteers. And, so gosh, the coaches ought to have a great experience. We want the referees, bless their hearts. We want them to have a good experience. And so we do that. And one of the ways we do that is through what we call a local partnership. And we help the organization with their culture shaping. We do a lot of, for 22 years, we did a lot of in-person workshops where, we explored what people wanted to get out of sports and how they could accomplish that. And now we, like the Warriors, we've pivoted to virtual video workshops, but we're still having that same impact, but in a different way.
That's great. One thing I want to start with is, and what I like about the kind of the Positive Coaching Alliance framework is you talk a lot about understanding your goals. Why, as a parent, what are your goals? And for your kids, what are your goals? And I think that's a good place to start the conversation, is to understand, what does that mean? And how do we think about what sports can offer us beyond what's on the court?
Yeah, Jeremy, in our parent workshops, that's one of the first things we invite parents to do is reflect on what, as a parent, they want their child to get out of playing basketball. And over, parents tell us we want them to learn how to deal with defeat. We want them to learn the correlation between hard work and results. We want them to learn respect for officials. We want them to learn about team. They tell us all these good things. And yet, when I go watch those same parents at the game, Aaron's laugh. When I go watch those same parents at the games, there's a disconnect. They wanted their kid to learn respect for the officials, and as soon as the official made a questionable call, mom and dad are yelling at the referee. They want their kids to learn teamwork, and yet they're telling to their, yelling out to their kids, shoot, don't pass, you shoot, So, one great lesson right off the bat for someone who wants to be a great sports parent is to know what your goals are, and then always think about, in the back of your mind, always have those goals in mind when you're at the gym, when you're driving your child home from practice. And make sure, try really hard. It's not easy, it's a challenge, but try hard to make your words and behavior match those values, those goals that you have for your child in the experience.
It's a neat concept. I think back to growing up in Dallas, my dad, I think, must have set the goals of, he was a doctor, he was busy, and he wanted to be a coach. And part of his goal was to be able to bond with me and spend time with me through that. So he succeeded in that he was our coach. He wasn't all that good of a coach because he didn't have much time, and he wasn't trained in go through PCA training. Which probably why I wanted a technology company in sports and never quite made it to Aaron's level. But it's interesting to think about what do you want out of it and how you ultimately use that as a filter to kind of dictate your actions. Coach Miles, one of the things I can't help but think about is we talk about all the things that you get from sports, and resiliency is one, how you overcome adversity, how you're part of a team. And it seems like a lot of those skills are skills that are important right now when we're going through such a crazy experience that is challenging all of us, especially our kids. So talk a little bit about what you personally have gotten out of sports and how you think about those lessons when it comes to kind of what your kids can take out of it, even if they can't play in leagues and tournaments and games right now.
Well, for one of the things I've always said is that basketball, that round orange leather ball, has taken me across the globe. Literally, I've played professionally over in Greece, Russia, France, and in a number of different places, and obviously in the States. And I think that's the one thing it does. It gives you a chance to see the world and be exposed to it. And from a kid standpoint, opportunity to go to different tournaments. You're still traveling, you're still doing things. Being a part of a team, and understanding it ain't about me, it's about the we. That's important for me. And the real thing that I really appreciate about the game of basketball and sports in general is how it brings people together. I think it unites us. So many of us have different upbringings, different backgrounds, and so forth. But that's one thing that we all have in common is that love for the sport of basketball or whatever sport that may be. And it brings you back to a table in which you can have dialogue, not only about the sport, but now you develop friendships where you can get to learn about another person's upbringing and their culture and vice versa.
Is there a particular moment you can think about in your career playing basketball that taught you a lesson that stuck with you that you now try to impart, in the people that you're working with as a coach or as a parent?
I'm gonna say this, I grew up in a predominantly African American community, and then I actually going into my freshman year, there was a squad, an AAU team that was put together, that was more predominantly, white, and so this was my first interaction for the most part in that regard, and so you don't know what to expect, obviously because you got different upbringings, different backgrounds, cultures, and so forth. But the more you got, the more we was around each other, we built this bond, and that was really good for me, and to go and see a different perspective on living in different ways things were done were important for me, man. It was good to see just a different perspective, in life. When you're accustomed to doing things one way, to understand that there's more than one way to skin a cat, so to speak. Are we frozen? Hello?
I think Jeremy's frozen. Let's see if he's jumping back in here.
I'll also say this. The other thing that for Jeremy, he is frozen.
Keep going with your point, though, Coach.
Another thing, like I was talking about skinning a cat, there's always more than one way to do things, obviously. You were talking about, growing up.
Hey, everyone. Can you hear me?
When I was at the University of Kansas,
So,
I played
please
my
go ahead, Aaron.
And I was just talking about another thing for me, having, played my first 2 years for Roy Williams, a legendary coach now at University of North Carolina. And then going into my junior year, Coach Self came on board, and he came in and brought a whole different style of play. And that's the one thing that he taught us is that, you know, we came off of back-to-back Final Fours with Coach Williams, you know, and then Coach Self came in and changed the style up a little bit. And one thing that he said, there's more than one way to skin a cat, you know, and that's something that has stuck with me as well. It's just, you know, there's more than one right way to do things. You know, there's just differences and you know, but be open-minded. You know, it taught me just to be open-minded to new ideas and new thoughts.
So, Coach Ruben, talk to me about what you think it means to be, what's the role of a basketball parent? When we talk about a basketball parent, what does that mean to you? Big question.
Support. Okay, and now, okay, what does that look like? What, you know, some parents think they're supporting and being helpful and, you know, but support. You know, we talked about parents' goals earlier, Jeremy. Well, your kids have their own reasons for playing basketball. And you know what? Their reasons might be different than the reason mom and dad are driving them to the game. And that's okay. It's you know, a kid is going to have a different perspective on things than an adult. And so your kid might dream of being a Golden State Warrior one day. Okay? And it's fine to have that dream. It's fine to even turn it into a goal and an action plan. And as a parent, we want to support our kids' goals and dreams within reason. You know, we're not going to mortgage the house. You know, you know, we're not going to take unreasonable risks and chances. But so we want to support without smothering. Okay, you've heard the term helicopter parent. You've heard the term. There's a new term called bulldozer parent. The parent that, you know, drives the tractor in front of the kid and clears out all the challenges and obstacles, you know, make sure that their kid succeeds. You know, well, you know, your kid might succeed temporarily if there's no challenges. That's not a good way for the long term. So, Jeremy, I'd sum it up. You know, I could say a lot about, but I'd sum it up by the role of the parent is to support without smothering.
That's great. And Coach Miles, you have a personal experience here. What do you think of your role as a parent? And what does it mean to be a great basketball parent? What does that mean to you? There you go.
Like you said, the biggest thing is just the support. You know, I know a lot of times as parents, you know, we want our kids to do the best and be the best and so forth. So we put a lot of pressure on them to do those things. And the one thing that I try to tell my kids is that no matter what, as long as you compete and you try, give your best, I'm going to be okay with it. I'm personally going to be okay with it. However, if I see you out there lollygagging, joking around, playing around, and not taking it, you know, if the coach is talking to you, if you're not being respectful, giving them eye contact, things of that nature, then I'm going to have a problem. But I want you to have fun, but I want you to take it, you know, I want you to have fun, but at the same time, I want you to, you know, be serious with it. So if you're going to play. You know, but again, it goes back to what Ruben said is in terms of, you know, what are your goals? So my kids are young, so a lot of it is just to play and be with their friends. But then you hear them talk about, man, I would love to be in the NBA. I would love to go to college. I want to play. And so if that's the case, it's like, well, if that's the case, son, then these are some things that you want to make sure you're doing. And the biggest thing is develop the fundamental of being coachable, you know, being able to pay attention and listen to your coach while he's giving instructions. You know, being a great teammate, those different type of things is the things that I kind of like to judge my, or I hate to say judge, but yeah, you know, look for in my kids, you know, when they're out there on the court or on the field.
You must have an interesting perspective as you sit there and you have parents that are yelling at a coach or giving feedback to a coach, and you're like, I'm a coach and I may not be saying anything. So what is it that you observe about how other parents are handling it? And what advice and perspective would you give to them about the best way to be constructive and give feedback, especially because, you know, I imagine even compared to some of the coaches that are coaching your kids, you have a lot of experience, but you're not jumping in there to draw the plays.
So this is the funny thing. Like for me, you know, my kids play for a number of different places since we've moved around. And I sit in the stands and I'm observant, you know, and my thing is always, I know sometimes the coaches may feel a certain type of way, as I am a professional coach. So they may be, worried or whatever. And I tell them from the onset, man, I want them to learn the fundamentals, basics. I let you do your thing or whatever. And I'm here to support you. Now the reality of it is some of these coaches, I very much appreciate these coaches because they volunteer their time to be with my kids. And that's the one thing I appreciate out of them, that they take their time out their day and away from their families and so forth to be with my kids. And so I appreciate that. And I let them know that. And I also let them know, man, if I'm available, if you would like for me to help you and help out, then I'll be your assistant, because I think a lot of times, we criticize the coaches and talk about them, but then we just go back home and do the same thing. We're not trying to help them, so I never bash the coach in front of my kids. And I'm always supportive and just if I'm available, if you would like for me to help, I will help, and that's just how I do as a supporter, because the reality of it is, to be frank with you, is so many parents out there that wants their kids to be something that they weren't, and that's something that I see a lot, and so it is finding a balance of pushing your kids, but also sitting back and letting the coach do his job and being supportive as well. Jeremy, we can't hear you, brother.
Sorry, you can hear me now.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? Navigating all kinds of technical difficulties. We got this. So let's try again. What I see, Ruben, is that if I'm a parent, and as Coach Miles was saying, you've got to figure out what your role is, right? And as he was saying, my role is not as the coach. I can be a resource, but that's not my role. So I'm curious, from your perspective, what is your when you think about that idea of the goals that you have as a parent, and you're using that to filter your actions. Let's say that your goal is, I want my kid to be a professional basketball player because I wasn't one, right? Are you allowed to have those actions that are consistent with it? Like, what are the ways, like, if the goal is to actually make my child get a college scholarship, whatever it may be, what is the way to work within that context? Or is that the wrong frame? Is that not the right goal that they should be thinking?
I always get a little nervous because we do have in our workshop, some parents say, yeah, my goal is to get my kid a Division I scholarship. It makes me a little nervous. However, I think that can be a goal if you pursue that goal with perspective. Okay. So hey, my son, who's 24 years old now, if he had become a professional athlete, I would have been not only okay with it, I've been thrilled, But parents, we got to look at it with perspective. Aaron's in the 1%, and maybe in the a smaller fraction of that, of kids playing sports that are eventually going to make it to the pros. And so, if my goal is for my child to be a professional athlete, okay, that's my goal. But I've got a backup plan too. I've got another goal. If my goal is for my kid to get a college scholarship, because I value education, well, I got a backup plan in case that college scholarship doesn't come through. I've got a savings account. I figured out how to apply for financial aid. I'm making sure that the grades are good, supporting the grades, because that's another path. There's other paths. So that's how I would approach that question, Jeremy.
Yeah, one of the things I think is amazing is if you think about the value of sports, I think they just came out with another the Fortune 500 list, and there were more women CEOs on that list than ever before. The most highly correlated statistic, for example, for a woman in a leadership position is whether they played team sports at the high school or collegiate level, right? And you can see that correlation with leadership. I think about the kinds of individuals that are going to succeed in the world that we have. It's kids that are learning the right kind of lessons about teamwork, right? And about communication, around collaboration, about handling adversity, like your technology not working when you're hosting an event. Like, these are all things that you kind of get from sports. Ruben,
Jeremy,
here is,
Jeremy, could I add one thing? Actually, a couple quick things. It's one thing to make it to the high school level and make the varsity team in high school. It's a whole other thing to make it to the profession, the filtering, percentages. And then the other thing about a parent whose goal is for their child to play at a really high level, the other caution we give parents is, boy, imagine being an 8-year-old. Aaron, who's that with you there? next to you? What's his name?
Hey, this is the 8-year-old, actually. This is
Pedro?
Neil, say hello. This is Isaiah. This is Isaiah, my 8-year-old, second grade.
Isaiah. Okay, so imagine Isaiah getting the impression as an 8-year-old, wow, mom and dad hope that I become a pro. Mom and dad, their dream is for me to get a scholarship. Nothing turns a joyful, playful, positive experience into a burden faster than a child somehow getting that into their head. So Jeremy, I wanted to add that to the question that you asked me earlier.
So Coach Miles, one of the questions become is how do you use basketball to provide those teachable moments? And so ultimately, not with if your goal is your kid has a high school career or college career, if it's just to learn the right kind of lessons from sports, what are the ways that you tried to, as a parent, you try to teach those lessons to your own kids, and not just to make them better? And we'll get into some skills that you're teaching at home and that made you famous on YouTube. But I'm curious, beyond that, what are the lessons that you're trying to impart, and what are those kinds of conversations you're trying to have with your kids around it?
Well, big thing is I think for my kids, for me anyway, it's all about uplifting people, uplifting each other. So in this household, we got a lot of competition that goes on, sports related, and obviously on teams. My thing is when you have a teammate that's struggling, you try to find a way to encourage them, to uplift them, to make them feel better about themselves, because obviously the whole thing is for us as a team to win. So one of our models is, your success equals our success equals my success, so we try to impart that on them, and which is part of leadership. That's a part of the leadership aspect that sports provide as well, and so you just try to point out different scenarios and different situations, be it their own experiences, or if we're watching a game, or if we're watching something that's happened, just at the grocery store. We just try to find ways that, that you can be helpful and uplift people, encourage and challenge one another.
Yeah, and Ruben, what's your perspective on this in terms of, especially as you're thinking about that teachable moment? What's the best thing that a parent should say to their kids after a game or after practice, or what are the ways to take a look at and things that may have happened? Again, things that are happening at home, things in the backyard, or things that might be happening on a court, and use that as an opportunity to impart a lesson.
Yeah. So the best thing for a parent to say after the game is, "I love watching you play." Okay. Another good things to say are, what do you feel like for dinner? Another good thing might be, hey, do you want to talk about the game? But just start, if you're gonna venture there, you start with a question, and because Aaron alluded to this. A lot of parents, this is about what they did not accomplish as a kid. You make it about them, okay, and their dreams, and so this is your child's experience. And so let's make sure we don't take that away from them. So, hey, do you want to talk about the game? Or do you want to talk about what happened there in the second quarter? And if they do, keep asking them questions. Why do you think Joey got so mad at that point in the game? What would you do if the opponent elbowed you in that situation? But at PC, we talk about empowering conversations with our kids. Too often, conversations between adults and kids, especially parents and children, is the all-knowing wise adult pouring their wisdom into the lowly child's brain. But that's not how people learn best. That's not how our kids will get the most out of the experience. Parents, we want to help guide them through their own processing and learning. And so that's when we converse about their experience. We ask questions and we listen. And if our child says, "What do you think, Dad?" Okay, there's my chance. Okay. And I'm going to seize that opportunity when I'm asked for advice. Okay. But that's what we think is the best thing to do after the game.
Can I add something to that? It's funny, man. I had a conversation. So one of our first Miles Mondays, we did Tim Hardaway. the UTEP two-step. He played for the Golden State Warriors for some years, a legend. And so afterwards, I had a conversation with him in which he talked about his son, raising his son. He has a son now that plays for the Dallas Mavericks, Tim Hardaway Jr. And he talked about how early on he was so hard on his son that his son began to lose the passion and the love for the game. And then he said it was until he stepped back and just said, you know what, son? He told his son, I'm going to step back and let you just play and do you. I'm not going to critique you. I'm not going to do anything. But if you want to talk about it, I'm here for you. And he said that's when he saw his son's love for the game grow, and he saw his son start coming to him, asking him more questions and wanting to know his opinions and thoughts. So it's interesting hearing you say those things. Because as a parent, I mean, sometimes I can't lie. I get in that same mode, where I'm talking down on the kids, opposed to having that back and forth dialogue and letting them hear what their perspectives is. So it was good for me to hear that from Tim, as well as, hearing it now from you.
All right, I'm going to jump in. I think Jeremy lost some audio there, and just some really interesting points from both Coach Miles and from Ruben. And, the one thing that kind of struck me is, one silver lining in the situation we're dealing with right now is when we do get back to actually playing the game of basketball again, there's probably going to be some restrictions around spectators and things like that. And there may be opportunities where parents aren't going to be able to be in the gym to watch some of these games. And I'm interested to hear both of your perspectives on what you think the child is going to experience in terms of their joy for the game and how they're able to play that game without maybe having a parent in their ear from the sidelines and being able to focus on the game at hand and maybe the instruction that the coaches are giving them. Feel free to jump in, either Ruben or Aaron, on that one.
Aaron, you want to start?
You can go. Go ahead.
Yeah. Quite honestly, Jeff, if the parents can't be at the games, I think that the vast majority of kids are going to enjoy the experience at least as much as they did before. And in some cases, they're going to enjoy it a lot more. Kids don't need mom and dad at every game. I didn't play sports the way Aaron did, but I loved it. And my parents came to 1 or 2 games a year. And it was cool when they were able to get there to the game and they were into it. But they drove me to every game. They bought me tennis shoes so I could play, but they didn't feel that they had to be there watching over. And I'm telling you, I don't think anyone enjoyed youth sports more than me just because their dad or mom was at the game every time. So, we at PCA, we do think that the role of the parent is to reinforce the life lessons that the sport and that the child's coach is trying to teach them. So there could be a little bit of a missed opportunity there. Like if you didn't see what happened in the game, you might not know the questions to ask your child afterwards. But on the other hand, on the flip side, the fact that you were there makes it a lot easier for you to ask, And you don't start by saying who won. You don't start by saying how many points did you score? What was the favorite part of the game? What did you admire about the opponent? What did coach emphasize? What does coach want you to remember from today's game? So I think those are some of the things that might happen, Jeff.
Well, I'm going to say
– Go ahead, Coach Moss.
Oh, I was going to say I'm going to have to work on that because my first question is always, hey, who won? I ain't even going to lie to you. Yeah, I know. It's but the important thing is, like I said, man, how did you play? How did your team play together and so forth? One of the interesting things for me is if parents can't be in there, then there's so many kids that I see whatever move they make, shoot the basketball, whatever happens on the court, they're always looking up in the stands for their parents' approval or disapproval. And so it's going to be interesting because now the kids don't have that. So now they'll be able to play more freely, and then they'll be listening to the coach a lot more than listening to their parents. That's one of the things. Now, I will be a little disappointed because I can't be in there because I love to be there to support and watch my kids play, but it is what it is. Hopefully for them to understand that, mommy and daddy ain't going to be there, be able to be everywhere with you every moment. And so for them to understand that, Nah, you got to grow up a little bit. You got to grow up a little bit.
Well, Aaron, how many times have you been to your child's classroom and sat in with them during a school day?
Right.
I'm guessing it's not very many.
Not
Okay,
as many,
maybe. Okay, and so why do we as parents feel like we got to be at every game, we got to be at every practice, when something that we know is even more important,
more valuable? Yeah, absolutely.
School, we step back, and we do a much better job of stepping back, letting the teacher teach our child. But for sports, for some reason, oftentimes we gotta be there.
I mean, it's funny you say that, man, because during quarantine time, man, me and my wife, we turned in elementary school teachers. 5-6 hours out the day, and it's exhausting, man. So I tip my hat to the educators out there, but education is very important. I mean, they do need to understand it, and the reality of it is, a lot of times, as we trust the teachers to do their job, that's one of the things. We trust that the teachers are going to teach our kids, and so a lot of times we don't fully trust the coaches all the time, and we're critiquing them so much, but that's one thought that I had.
Yeah, we parents aren't all chemistry experts, but we're all basketball experts,
Absolutely. We don't watch a ton of that. Everybody don't watch The Last Dance. We don't watch Michael Jordan right now.
Yeah.
Still can't hear you.
Jeremy, we can't hear you.
I wonder if Jeremy can chat in questions over to you, Jeff, or even to us. He could even chat in the questions to us if the audio isn't working.
I will say this, like, for any coaches that's out there, I would say, it's funny because right now, like I say, during this quarantine, working with my kids in doing their schoolwork and things, you realize you got 4 kids come from the same household, mother and father, so forth, but 4 different personalities and 4 different learning ways of learning, right? And so you got to figure out as a coach, for any coaches that's listening, like, how do I get through to this kid? I might have to, my method may be different to this kid than it is to this kid. You know what I mean? So to understand those different dynamics is very critical, I think, in terms of maximizing the potential of the child, and that's also when you're dealing with their schoolwork, it goes hand in hand for me. I've drawn so many different parallels from, raising my boys with my wife and coaching basketball. There's so many parallels that I see within it.
Aaron, you talked about the coaches and the tough job they have with 12 different individuals, and you talked about the 4 different learning styles you have in your home or your school right now, right? Well, they got a team of 12 different learning styles. Or a football team, you got 50, and we got to appreciate what they're doing. Earlier, Jeremy asked about the role of the parents, and I said support, and I answered mostly from the standpoint of supporting your child. Well, another thing you can do is support that coach.
Absolutely.
Support that coach and appreciate that coach. And they're not going to be perfect, and they're not supposed to be perfect. They're not. If they were perfect, where they'd be coaching? Steve Kerr would be out of a job, and they'd be coaching. They'd be coaching the Warriors, because even Steve Kerr will tell you he makes mistakes and stuff. So the expectation for a youth sports parent is not to be perfect. It's not to have the ideal strategy and to know how to teach every skill. It's to care a lot about those kids they're working with and try to provide them with a healthy experience.
I'm going to jump in.
We should be grateful for that.
I'm going to jump in with a question here. I think Jeremy's still having some technical difficulty, but I kind of want to pick your guys' brain on your thoughts about specialization. I know there's a lot of pressure on kids and for parents to get their kid in one sport early and, start individual training at age 7 and do this and that. What are the values that you see and how can kids benefit by being exposed to multiple sports, throughout their childhood, and when should be should parents or kids make that decision where, hey, I really like soccer, or hey, I really like basketball, now I want to focus on it full time? Start with you, Aaron.
Okay. Well, I'm a huge advocate for playing multiple sports. I played 3 sports throughout high school, so I didn't specialize until freshman year of college. I played basketball, baseball, and football, and then I even did high jump as a senior in high school. So I'm a multi-sport guy, and I'm the same way with our kids. And I believe that, one of the things that it teaches you is how to play different roles, because you're not going to be the best in every sport. So in one moment you might be the best player on the basketball court. Then you go play baseball and you're sitting at the end of the bench, but you still got to be a great teammate, And then there's another, you're on a football field and, you're a main contributor, but you're not the man, So understanding how to deal with different roles is something that you learn from playing, multiple sports, And then on top of it, I think there was an article written, I think maybe about 6-7 months ago, in which it talked about some of the specialization of some of these players can be some of these the causes of some of these injuries that guys are getting as collegiate athletes or professional athletes, and so it allows you to work different muscle types, muscle groups, and my father used to always talk about, man, playing baseball worked on your hand-eye coordination, the football worked on the toughness, and so forth. So I think it all works together.
And Ruben, before you jump in there, does Aaron Miles work for PCA? I mean, I think what he just talked about right there is right along the lines of what you guys preach.
Well, absolutely. I mean, he hit all, there's so many reasons that playing multiple sports is great, and Aaron hit on a ton of them. Quite honestly, I would want my kids around Coach Aaron. I would want my kids around Coach Aaron. You're quite an impressive young coach, Aaron, and parent. So all the research says that playing multiple sports as long as you can is better. It's healthier. All the stories and anecdotes, virtually all of them, are like Aaron's. I bet you there are way more NBA players that played multiple sports in high school than specialized in one. I don't know that for a fact, but from everything I've heard and read, I would sure guess that. The multiple sport athlete, the question is, when should a kid specialize? The kid should specialize when they want to specialize. Okay, so if you've got a 6th grader and all they want to do is play basketball and they're not interested in football or piano or whatever, okay, they're going to be a basketball specialist. But it should be their decision, not the coach's decision, not mom and dad's decision. And if a kid wants to play 3 sports as a senior in high school, doggone it, coaches shouldn't be fighting over that athlete. When the kid wants to specialize, and in Aaron's case, it was his freshman year in college, that's the right time, because that's when Aaron wanted to specialize in basketball.
Yeah, can you guys hear me now?
There we go.
All right. Well, I feel like, thank you, Jeff, for picking me up. It's a lot of teamwork, subbing in and out. But Coach Miles, you're now this YouTube star. You're doing all these great workouts, Miles Mondays. What have you learned about those workouts? What advice would you give for parents about the kinds of things they could be doing at home? And as important, there's a great question coming in, which is, how do you then get them to get used to their other coach when they get back on their court? So how do you think about what you're doing at home, and then how does that complement maybe what actually happens when they're back within their formal organizations?
Well, it's tough. I mean, it's tough. It's not easy because I think there's a question in there also talk about how to get your kid off of the playing 2K, and all the video games. My kids do the same thing, and it's to your point, like you sometimes you got to force them to go outside or get off that game. Whether you ain't got to go play, but go do something else. You might want to go draw. If you want to go draw, you go draw. You go ride your bike. Or you could go out there and play a fun game. And so that's something that I'm constantly, trying to get them to understand. It ain't always about basketball and playing. Now, if you want to get into it, to get on that court, I think try to make it as fun as possible. I know we're blessed with six people in our family, so we play some 3-on-3 basketball out there. We play some 1-on-1s, 2-on-2s, and have some competitions, and it's fun in that regard. One of the things that I've always did with my kids is play pig with them, or like a horse game, but we just did 3-letter pig, in which, to try to get them to work on certain things, I would do a move in which now they got to try to emulate it. And because of that, it becomes fun. It ain't like it's structured teaching. Please. And sorry about that. And then the other thing that I've tried to do was, see, here we go.
It's not gonna be good.
The other thing that we try to do is to get a break sometimes and break up some of the monotony of the schoolwork is I'll take them outside. And, my youngest is a kindergarten, and we're working on addition and subtraction. And so we'll go outside and I'll say, hey, you're getting 10 shots, right? And we'll have the little chalk, write 10 down. Let's see how many you make out of 10. He makes 4 of them, minus 4. How many did you miss? Equals, and now you got to, answer that. So trying to do those things, come up with some fun games like that. It's some ways that you can incorporate basketball with the learning, and also just break up some of the monotony of the same old drill. Because you got to make it fun for the kids.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I think is important to think about is the centricity of like the kid to this experience, right? Like one of the things that's happening is, the kids are bringing their imagination in this pause of sports, and it's fun again. And sometimes parents' involvement takes away that fun. So I'm curious to know, Ruben, what are those strategies you can think about to actually make the experience fun again? If I remember, there was a GW study that came out that said that kids, having fun was like the top of their list. What they wanted, winning was like number 37. So how do you think about designing experiences, making sure your kids are having fun, whether you're doing it yourself or you're working through an organization?
Yeah, well, so first of all, if you're the parent or the coach and your kids are playing basketball, you don't stand there like this. I think back to when I was a young coach in the gym at Burnham Pavilion on the Stanford campus, standing there, watching my players train and practice like this. What was I projecting? I wasn't projecting fun. The Warriors talk about joy, one of the values. I wasn't projecting joy. Coach Bill Walsh, Bill Walsh, the legendary American American football coach, he talked about this as the position of judgment. It wasn't the position of support. It wasn't. So I like what Aaron said about playing with your kids. From the parent perspective, play with them. As a coach, Aaron said it, be careful about drill. Kids love basketball because they like to play basketball. They don't love basketball because they do drills, and of course the great ones will do the drills, but let them play, let them enjoy the game. And as an adult around the experience, project joy.
Do you think, Ruben, that, I think there's a great question coming in about, the challenge is a lot of organizations that are out there are catering towards winning, right? And not necessarily towards development. So ultimately, if you're an organization out there, right, you're trying to, or coach, and you're saying, hey, we're about more than winning, we're trying to do these other things, that can be challenging. So what advice do you have for how parents can find the right organization for them that values the same thing that they're about? What are the questions they should be asking, whether it's as they're evaluating, obviously, all the great programs the Warriors has or other Bay Area programs?
Yeah, that's a great question. And by the way, PCA is not anti-competition and winning. In fact, we talk about a positive coach as a double goal coach, and their first goal is to strive to win. Okay, first goal is it's sports, you try to win. But they have a second goal, and it's often the more important goal, and that is teaching life lessons through sports. So, as a parent, the first thing I do is I'd go on the website and I'd look at the mission statement of the organization. What does it say? And does that match what you're looking for? Okay, so if you want your kid to learn teamwork and respect and, life lessons, and you go on a mission statement, and the mission statement's talking about, we sent these 3 players to Division I, and this one's a pro, And you know, our goal is to make AAU nationals every year. Well, that night, again, does it match your goals? You know, and I'd ask a couple questions. I'd ask, you know, the board of directors, the director of coaching, you know, what's the philosophy of this organization, and does it match? And you know, the ideal sports experience for kids is where they win and they lose. The ideal sports experience, developmental experience, is not to win. I mean, we want them to experience win. We want but you don't get the full experience if you never lose. You know, you get an experience, but you don't get the full experience. And the same is true if you never win. That you know, you don't get the full experience. So, you know, I would look at the philosophy of the organization. Can they state it clearly, and does it match what you're looking for? That's what I would recommend parents.
You know, it's a shame that it's often easier to figure out what a good restaurant is than a good organization is in terms of the information that's out there.
Well, you might ask them, are you partners with Positive Coaching Alliance? What kind of training do you provide your coaches?
Right. I think there's that, and I think the other thing is that's one of the benefits of being part of the Warriors program, right? Is, you know, it's a values-based organization, and you can kind of, you know, what you're getting in that situation. Coach Miles, a couple last questions for you, which is, one, what's the best way to motivate kids, especially if, you know, you're talking about the video games, your kids may be passive, you know, you're trying to do virtual home drills and workouts, especially in this period of pause. What's your secret to kind of motivating and get the most out of them? And any tips you can provide?
I mean, hopefully y'all can't hear that, a little crying in the background. You know, the reality of it is they're gonna, you know, if they want to do it, they're gonna do it. I mean, especially right now, in terms of, I mean, you want it to be fun for them, you know, but if you're forcing it down them to motivate them to do other things, I mean, you got to make it fun for them, however that may be. You know, and so, like I said, we go outside, we play some 3-on-3, some competitive games, you know, but trying to force it out of them is tough, especially during these times, because, you know, it's like it becomes, it's the same old, okay, let's go do these skills, these drills on this virtual thing. You know, no type of competition in terms of with somebody, or no type of social interaction physically and being there and present with each other. I think that's what we're missing, obviously. And it's tough, you know. I'm trying to figure some of those same questions out, man. I don't have all the answers, you know, here, you know, and so I'm trying to figure some of those same things out as well.
So I'm quick, you know, final answers from our panel, and I'm gonna kick it to Jeff as we wrap up. You know, one of the things I think has been true, if you follow any of the Warriors players, you know, Steph Curry gets hurt, he figures out a way to come back better than before. You have an off season, you come back better than before. There's an idea that you're never wasting a moment or never wasting an opportunity, no matter what setbacks or adversity you may face. So when you think about the pause we're in, as we're experiencing this unprecedented thing, you know, Coach Miles, what's the one thing that you think that may have changed you as a parent, as a basketball parent? Is there something that you think a little bit about, that you've experienced, you've done, that will carry with you as you think about, you know, hopefully a return back to a kind of a new normal?
I'll just say this as a parent, you know, I feel like a lot of times we are always on the move, always on the go. We're doing different things. Our kids got to go to this training session. He got to go to this practice. Oh, they got to go do this piano or this. There's so much going on now. Now you're able to take a step back and just chill. And you realize, man, just because he missed out on one of those activities a week or whatever the case may be, doesn't mean he's going to fall that far behind. I think that's something that we think that our kids, if they're not doing that virtual workout right now, then they're going to fall so far behind, you know. But you want to make sure that they want to go do it. I think that's what, Ruben, you were talking about earlier, is something that they want to do, and not always being forced on them, because we as parents put the pressure on them so much. So it's one of the things for me is just realizing and understanding that, man, they don't have to be involved in every single activity. I want them to be good in it all, but I shouldn't want them to do it if it's hurting them as well.
Yeah. And Ruben, when you think about the silver lining here, what's the opportunity or point of reflection that parents might come through this and there's something better that comes out of it?
Yeah, I think that imperfect experience that our kids may have had is looking pretty good right now. You know, it may have not have been perfect, They may not got placed with the coach that we wanted them to get placed with, but they got to play. They got to learn. They got out of the house. And so I think a lot of appreciation can come out of this. I sure hope so. The people that make these opportunities possible for our kids, boy, I sure am appreciative as a parent of a kid who got to play basketball and track and swim. And I sure appreciate that there were people out there that were working really hard and giving of themselves to make this experience possible for our kids.
It's such a good point. And I think it's not only do you appreciate sometimes when you don't have it, but even as we come back, you know, that whether it's Jeff, you and the Warrior staff and the incredible team you have, how you're having to figure out virtual training, you're trying to figure out how to get back in a facility, you're thinking about health risk. Like there's a lot of things you're doing that just deserves that much more of an appreciation. So Jeff, as we close out, I know there's a lot of questions on virtual training, and so if there's an opportunity to get involved with the virtual camps that you're doing, do you need to have a basketball? Do you have all kinds of equipment? What happens if you're in a small apartment? Like what's the way that you've designed something so that it's accessible for everyone to be part of it?
Yeah, we've kind of made it work for everybody. So if you have a basketball and a water bottle and maybe 6 feet of space at home, you can execute any of the things that we're doing with our virtual programming. I think, as we kind of made that decision to cancel in-person camps for the time being for this summer, we did that kind of with the notion that, we're not closing the door completely on the ability to offer some in-person training sessions at some point this summer. What that's going to look like, I don't think any of us really know right now. Just, what it's going to entail. It's going to be, a lot smaller groups. It's going to be, a kid with their own basketball. They may not be able to play 5-on-5 right off the bat or anything like that. It's going to be a gradual move back into, what our new normal is going to be. And so, with the launch of our new facility in Oakland, we're taking all the steps possible to create that safe environment. We're following all the protocols that, Coach Mile and our training staff is doing with the Warriors actual team in reopening our practice facility. And we're going to do our best to kind of mimic the things that they're doing in San Francisco at the Oakland facility, just to give parents that peace of mind that they'll feel good about getting their kids into something that's, well run and going along the same protocols and procedures that the Golden State Warriors are doing. So that's kind of how we're attacking it. And, as you said, both Ruben and Aaron, you talked about appreciation. I just want to share with you guys my appreciation for both Coach Miles and for Ruben for sharing their perspective, my appreciation for Jeremy for setting up this type of platform to hear these great thoughts. Not only am I a coach and a program director, but I'm a parent as well. And, I wish you could see my notes to the side because I got a ton of things out of this conversation. And I hope everyone that was viewing at home got that same experience.
Yeah, I echo that appreciation, and I think first of all, I want to acknowledge the audience, right? The fact that you're willing to give up your time in the middle of the day for many on the West Coast, and thinking about, how do I be a better parent? How do I impart the lessons of sports? And I think there is such an opportunity to appreciate what youth sports and youth basketball has to offer, and by investing the time, you're part of that effort to help your kids get the most out of sports. So thank you, Coach Miles, for inspiring us. And your kids for making some guest appearances. You've got that. You can go to on YouTube for the Warriors Academy and check out all those Miles Monday workouts. So if you want to do something with your kids, that's great. Ruben, the amazing work that PCA is doing, certainly inspiring all of us. And everyone can go to the PCA website, positivecoach.org, specifically the devzone.positivecoach.org, and access incredible resources that are all free for parents to really help make sure that their families are getting the most out of the experiences. And of course, the Warriors for continuing to lead the way. Strength in numbers. Well, we needed those numbers to get through today as I was navigating a host of technical difficulties, but we got through it, and that's what sports teaches us. So thank you very much for all being here. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you all again to our panel. Have a great day, everyone.